Raw's debut on Netflix is officially in the history books, and it's safe to say that it was one of the biggest shows that WWE has ever produced. WWE and Netflix went all out when it came to the presentation of the show. There were big names, big matches, and above all else, a new audience. But how did the show favor to fans like me and everybody else? I'm yours truly, Flamin' Ricky DeRays, long time no see, and these are my thoughts on the amazing yet underwhelming debut of Monday Night Raw on Netflix. Before we get into all of this craziness, please make sure to like and subscribe to the Wrestle Havoc channel right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the friggin' referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. It's no stranger right now that Netflix is one of, if not the largest streaming service in the world right now. More people are leaning towards streaming than traditional cable television. With Netflix recently entering in the live sports business, all eyes are on Netflix with the, of course, recent Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fight, the NFL Game Day Christmas specials, and of course, WWE. Netflix is a whole new ballgame for WWE. It's a new audience that is being exposed to the crazy world of professional wrestling. And that is something that I will be talking about a lot in this video, a new audience. WWE's main goal throughout the entirety of this whole debut on Netflix was to expose new people to the product. They were also trying to bring in casual fans and also bring back lapsed fans who haven't watched the product in some time. The harsh reality is that even though the hardcore audience will watch every show, the hardcore audience is realistically a small portion of the general audience that WWE wants to capture. Not everybody is going to read the dirt sheets. Let's be realistic with ourselves. The WWE is in peak business right now, selling out every single arena all over the globe. And they want to lead more towards that. They are in full global domination mode. Hence why they brought out all of the big guns for this show. Now let's talk about what actually happened, because I have a lot of things to say about what I saw this past Monday. A lot of good and some kind of questionable. The show kicked off with an amazing video package highlighting the history of professional wrestling and WWE with its connection to the rise of television, all while an artist is painting a really nice painting on a ring canvas, which ultimately reveals itself in the end. The way this video package was shot was really cool. There was a huge projection covering the entirety of the ringside area. Then by the end of the video package, that projection was removed, only to reveal Triple H, who is in the ring, full of sponsors, which by the way, looks amazing. Now I may sound like a mark here for something so minor, but in my opinion, the ring having sponsors on the mat makes the show feel more sports oriented. It's very similar to how the UFC presents their product, with all the sponsors on the octagon. I mean, boxing promotions always have sponsors in the ring. AEW at some points have sponsors in the ring. New Japan has sponsors in the ring. WCW had sponsors in the ring. I feel like this is a little bit late in the game for WWE. They were just diving deep into it, but they went full blown hella sponsors with that Fortnite logo in the center of the mat. Kind of reminds me of NXT Black and Gold. I'm glad that WWE is actually catching up to this, because this is something that's been long overdue in my opinion. I have been advocating for sponsors on the ring mat for years, and they're finally doing it, which I dig. Oh, and for the people complaining about this, honestly, your opinion is ass. Even though you're entitled to your opinion is ass. Triple H welcomes us to the show, and he welcomes us to a new era, the Netflix era. Then The Rock comes out, which led to a huge pop by the audience. Of course, he comes out to his final boss music, and then he cuts this big giant babyface rah-rah speech about how great and how big of a deal this is. He thanks the people of Endeavor, that being Ari Emanuel, who are in the front row, also the Netflix executives that were up at the skybox, but more importantly, and this was my first major issue with this whole show, he thanked Cody Rhodes, who by the way is the undisputed WWE champion. He is the face of the company, your top baby face, and he is in the front row, and he is being thanked by The Rock, the same Rock, by the way, who beat him to a bloody pulp in front of his own trailer with a weight belt. Yeah, that Rock, the final boss Rock, and left him in a crimson mask, as Jim Ross would love to say. Here lies the issue. I understand that pro wrestling is a work, and WWE is acknowledging that. The general audience and every single wrestling fan hopefully knows that wrestling is a work. But in my eyes, the whole purpose of professional wrestling is for the viewer to escape their own reality and enter into WWE's reality. When you go to an event, you enter their universe, per se. One example of this was what happened at Bad Blood a couple of months ago. Of course, I'm talking about when Kevin Owens turned heel and attacked Cody Rhodes. How did we find that out? We did not find that out at the pay-per-view. We found that out after the show went off the air. Not to mention, we all found out via a fan on social media. media. That is exactly what I'm talking about. The Rock basically putting over Cody Rhodes was kind of a dumb move on WWE's part, because in my eyes, they are deeming everything that we have seen throughout this past year between The Rock and Cody Rhodes absolutely useless. Not to mention what we saw from the Raw after WrestleMania 40 with The Rock and Cody Rhodes. We still do not know what The Rock gave to Cody Rhodes. The Rock also came back at Bad Blood after the tag team match. So let me ask you again, what was the point of this segment? This segment realistically did not do anything. All this segment did was render everything useless. Cody being in the front row did no favors for him. If The Rock had cut that babyface promo and hadn't mentioned Cody Rhodes whatsoever, that would have been fine. But WWE did not do that, and that is my biggest issue. Because if you want to draw new fans in, that is the worst way to do it. Now, let's talk about the matches themselves. The majority of the matches were great, to say the least. The card was basically a WrestleMania-esque card, but my biggest problem with the matches that we saw was that there was no storyline progression. An example of this was Roman Reigns versus Solo Sikoa. Of course, it was their tribal combat match, the second ever tribal combat match. The match itself was great, especially once the interferences started to happen. Of course, it is your typical bloodline shtick, so of course, interference is bound to happen. It really got the crowd pumped up. All of that culminated in Roman Reigns getting the pin over Solo Sikoa and regaining the Ula Fala that he lost. Here lies the issue. The Rock shows up and he's face to face in the ring with Roman Reigns. You know shit's about to go down. Paul Heyman gives The Rock the Ula Fala and he hands it to Roman Reigns, who becomes the true tribal chief. Honestly, me watching wrestling my whole life, I expected The Rock to rock bottom the hell out of Roman Reigns, but we did not get that. There was no follow-up whatsoever. All you saw was The Rock just cheering on Roman Reigns and basically having a whole celebration in the ring. Nothing else. No drama, no progression, nothing. Is this the end of the bloodline story? We have no idea. But where is this leading to? Who is Roman Reigns going to face at WrestleMania? And again, that can be a bad thing, but at the same time, it could also be a good thing. Because if you really think about it, this year's WrestleMania, there's a lot of rumors speculating on what could possibly happen, what matches could happen at WrestleMania, what the main event could possibly be. That's actually a good thing. We do not know what is going to happen at WrestleMania, but at the same time, you're kind of leaving fans in the loop, and at some point, it's kind of annoying in my opinion. But then again, there was no storyline progression with this exact moment. You had The Rock in the ring, Roman Reigns in the ring. They kind of had a face-off, but then all of a sudden they just shook hands and that was it. Nothing else. And to me, that was kind of underwhelming. And you're going to see a lot of that with this show. Now, here was a bright spot. Of course, it is the Raw on Netflix, and we can't talk about the first Raw on Netflix without talking about the John Cena retirement tour of 2025. Of course, what I'm talking about, if you guys don't know, back at Money in the Bank last year, John Cena made his return to WWE after a brief hiatus and announced his retirement tour that will be taking place from January of 2025 all the way to December of 2025. Of course, when he announced his retirement tour, there was a lot of speculation as to who John Cena will face during this whole year of 2025, since it's going to be his last year wrestling. There are a lot of faces that Cena could face once again. Guys like CMPunk, Seth Rollins, Randy Orton, Cody Rhodes, which by the way, he did wrestle Cody Rhodes numerous times in Cody Rhodes' first run in the WWE. He didn't wrestle the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, but again, that is a story that you could definitely tell. There are a lot of faces that he could face for the first time. Guys like Gunther and Braun Breaker. I definitely want to see that happen. I want to see another match with John Cena and Sami Zayn. I mean, look at the way Sami Zayn has evolved from 2015 to now. I mean, if you really think about it, Sami Zayn is kind of like a modern Mick Foley. There is a lot of possibilities with who John Cena could possibly face throughout this whole year of 2025. I'm telling y'all, as a fan, this is going to be an emotional ride, but at the same time, it's going to be a fun one as well. Now that begs the question, will he go after his 17th world championship? Well, from the looks of it, he probably will, as he has declared himself for the Royal Rumble. And that was basically John Cena's announcement. And realistically, the Royal Rumble this year looks very promising. There are a lot of guys that could be in line to potentially win that match. But that's another video for another time. Me personally, I actually want to see Cena go after number 17. I don't care about Ric Flair's record in my opinion. Look, Ric Flair is the greatest of all time, but I could just care less. I'd want to see it happen because it's John Cena of all freaking people. And one last run as either the WWE or World Heavyweight Champion. This is great storytelling and great storyline opportunities that WWE has right in front of them. There are many scenarios that they can go with this. Rhea Ripley versus Liv Morgan I thought was a pretty good match. Of course, Judgment Day was going to get involved, and they played their role well. In the end, Liv Morgan drops the Women's World Championship to Rhea Ripley, and I don't care what anybody says, as much as I loved Liv Morgan and her character progression and her work with the Judgment Day, her dropping the title to Rhea Ripley was the right call to make, considering we are at WrestleMania season, and of course Rhea Ripley is the bigger star, so who better to go into WrestleMania as the champion than Rhea Ripley? Now, the biggest question when it comes to Rhea Ripley is, who will she face? Now, there are a lot of rumors speculating on who will possibly return at this show. Names floating like Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, AJ Lee of all people floating around, which was probably the least likely, even though imagine if that had happened, it would probably broken the internet. I shit you not. But none of those returns took place. That could be a disappointment, but at the same time, nobody knows the lives of Charlotte, Becky, or even AJ Lee if you want to throw her name in the boat right there. But again, do I see someone like a Charlotte Flair or a Becky Lynch return? Absolutely. I definitely do see that being the case. And what's weird about this is right after Rhea Ripley won the women's title, The Undertaker out of nowhere came out, of course, Kid Rock and all, with his motorcycle, the American Badass, my favorite version of The Undertaker, by the way. He came out and he celebrated with Rhea Ripley, which, if you really think about it, it was probably one of the most random things that you definitely saw on this show, but whatever. Then again, there was no follow-up whatsoever, so it was kind of a bummer, but Rhea Ripley winning the women's title made sense and was the right call. Then we had Drew McIntyre versus Jay Uso. I'm going to be brutally honest with you guys. This was definitely the weakest match on the entire show. The crowd at this point was just absolutely dead. They did not care about this match, and this is coming from someone who likes Drew McIntyre and Jay Uso. I mean, the work that Drew McIntyre has done alone this past year, of course, feuding with CMPunk. I mean, that feud right there set the tone for the heel Drew McIntyre character, and he's one of the best things on WWE television right now. So is Jay Uso. I mean, Jay Uso, he has that connection with the audience. I mean, for God's sakes, just look at his entrance. But again, this match was kind of a thrown together match that, in my opinion, could have been great, but I feel like with the nature of the crowd, it just didn't gel with people. The crowd felt like they just didn't care what they were seeing. And that actually leads me to talk about something else when it regards to not only just this show, but going forward with WWE Raw on Netflix, and that is the length and timing of the show. So one thing I will say is the timing of the show was 3 hours. I'm talking about the show that took place this past Monday. Every week from now, Raw will have a different length. So one week Raw could possibly be 2 hours. One week Raw could possibly be 3 hours. Another week Raw could be 2.5 hours. Who knows? The lengths for the shows each week will be different. And that can be a good thing or a bad thing. It can be a good thing in a case of WWE possibly wanting to tell more stories than they already do, or fleshing out a certain angle that is taking place throughout the entirety of the show and really creating that suspense, which is something that they have been doing really well lately. But at the same time, the bad part about that is if the show, for example, is a little bit too long, it can create burnout, not only with the viewer watching on Netflix, but the fan watching live at the arena. And I don't want to see that happen. If there's burnout with the viewer, because if there's burnout with the viewer, then the viewer is then going to just get turned off, or the viewer is just going to turn off the show. And you don't want that to happen. At the end of the day, less is more, quality over quantity. Now, in one of the funniest moments of the whole night, Hulk Hogan, yes, Hulk Hogan comes out. And this right here was one of the most talked about moments from this whole show. This made headlines the next day, and it was hilarious. Now, what am I talking about, I might add? Of course, I'm talking about Hulk Hogan getting booed out of the arena in California, I might add. He was out there with Jimmy Hart promoting his new beer, which probably tastes like garbage. Kind of reminds me of Ric Flair's Woo energy drink. You remember that? Yeah, neither did I. I wonder how that's doing. Every time Hulk Hogan spoke, he was just showered with boos. It was one of the funniest things that I have seen all year, and we're just days into 2025. Now, why were the fans in California booing, I might add? Was it his political affiliation with Trump? I mean, you can make that argument considering they are in California, and California is a blue state. But at the same time, you can't really make that argument considering The Undertaker, who, by the way, endorsed Trump, came out earlier in the night and was getting cheered by the audience. I think there is another reason as to why Hulk Hogan was getting booed out of the building, and I'm pretty sure you can guess what that is. I don't have to tell you it. Like, seriously, go to Google and look it up. Everybody knows. That's all I'm gonna say. The fans had every right to boo Hulk Hogan, and it was the funniest shit I've ever seen in my life. Now let's move on to the main event. CMPunk, the Second City Saint, the voice of the voiceless, versus Seth frickin' Rollins. This match was built very well. Of course, the original plan for for this match to take place was at WrestleMania 40 last year, but of course, due to unfortunate circumstances, that did not happen. Of course, Punk got injured at the Rumble. Seth Rollins got slightly injured, but he still managed to wrestle Drew McIntyre at last year's WrestleMania. Of course, that match between Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre led to one of the greatest Money in the Bank cash-ins in recent memory when Damian Priest came in and cashed in on Drew McIntyre. Bro, the shot of CM Punk's face once Damian Priest's music hit, honestly, that shot was probably the best shot in the whole year. All of that led towards the Punk and McIntyre feud, which then after that concluded, he went straight to Seth Rollins. Of course, Seth Rollins continues to have real-life animosity towards CM Punk, and it shows. The segments that these two men have had building up to this match were some of the best segments that I've ever seen. Just watch that segment on the Go Home Raw before the Netflix show. It's really fantastic. You can make the argument that CM Punk definitely cooked Seth Rollins there. But let's talk about the match itself. I personally thought the match was a little bit underwhelming, but I'm not going to flat out say the match sucked. And the reason why I'm going to say that is because we're probably going to get more matches out of both of these guys. But I will say, I expected more when it came to this match, and Punk getting the win was kind of a shock to me. Because if you realistically look at both men, if you look at Seth Rollins and you look at CM Punk, who needs that win more? Punk or Rollins? I can make the argument that Rollins realistically needed that win more than Punk did. Because even if Punk lost, the crowd was just gonna be sympathetic towards CM Punk. If Punk had lost this match, it wouldn't really matter considering how big of a star he is. Personally, I wanted Seth to go over in this match. But WWE sees another side of the story that we do not see. So I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. And also, this is not gonna be the last time we're going to see these two men against each other in the ring. I believe that we're going to be getting a trilogy of matches between CM Punk and Seth Rollins, and honestly, I'm here for it. We are only getting started. But Punk got the win, and the show ended, and again, we got no follow-up. Yeah. So overall, how was the debut of Monday Night Raw on Netflix? Me personally, I enjoyed it from a visual standpoint. But if you're talking about it from a creative standpoint, honestly, I'm kind of mixed. Kind of felt like I got a whole lot of nothing when it came to storyline progression. The show in my eyes kind of felt like a pacing of an AEW Dynamite, in which they would move on from one match or segment to the next segment or the next match, and there wouldn't be any progression when it came to their major stories. Maybe that was done by WWE intentionally. Who knows? But from what we saw this past Monday on Raw, it's as clear as day that WWE is definitely trying to cater to new fans, or trying to bring back the lapsed viewer. And that is something that wrestling fans who love living in their bubble need to deal with. But that was my thoughts on Monday Night Raw's debut on Netflix. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications, and be on the lookout for more videos right here on the Wrestle Havoc channel, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the freaking referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And as always, it is yours truly, Flamin' Ricky DeRays, signing out. I'll see you guys all later. Peace.